Beautiful job. Our initial setup looks pretty cool. So we have one column layout on a small screen, and then as the screen size increases, also so does the amount of columns that we're displaying. And eventually, again, we have this main two column layout, and then inside of the product list, we have this three column layout for all our products. But I also would want to set up the list view where if the user wants, he or she can change to this list view layout where we have one column layout all the way from the small screen to the big screen. And don't worry, eventually we will change this dynamically, of course. But for the time being, I would just want a hard code where in the state, in a filter context, I'll set up some kind of property and initial value will be false. So the grid view will be false. And that's why we'll display the list view. And then eventually, once we work on sort, of course, we'll add functionality where the user can control, well, which view are we displaying. So what I would want right now is go back to the filter context. And then in the state, after the all products, I'm going to go with grid underscore and then view. Now, eventually this will be true because that is my preference to showcase the grid layout by default. But for the time being, just because I would want to set up the list view, I'll set it up as false. Now, we're already passing in the state, so we don't need to worry about that. And now we would want to go back to the product list. So not the grid view, we're done with grid view. We're going back to the product list. And then not only we're getting the products from our context, I also would want to get grid underscore view property. And then I would want to set up one return if I don't have any products, which at the moment we would need to change the values in a state in order to see it. And I'm not going to do that. Just remember that as we're going to be filtering, eventually there's going to be the case where this filtered products array is going to be empty. So if that is the case, then I would want to display some kind of text. And if it's not the case, then of course I'm going to go with either grid view or I'm going to go with list view. So in here, let's say if product is having a length of less than 1. So if my filtered product array is filtered down to an empty array, then I would just want to return a heading 5. And I'll cheat a little bit here since I don't want to set up the style component. I'm just going to go with inline style and I'll say text transform none. Because by default, all my headings have the text transform of capitalized, I believe. And I'm just going to cheat a little bit and add the inline style where I wouldn't want to capitalize this one. And I'll just say, sorry, no products matched your search like so. And we can add 3 dots if we want. So of course, this is going to be the case if we have empty array. Now, I messed it up a little bit and I didn't set up the return. Now everything is correct. Again, if you want to test it out, navigate to filter reducer and just make sure that filter products is always going to be empty array. Now, by the way, there's a faster way I can do something like this. So once the product's changed, I'm not dispatching the action, notice. So if that is the case, sorry, no product matched your search, because by default, of course, the filter product is an empty array. So I'll go back and of course I'll uncomment that one. And then in the products list, I would want to set up one more if statement where I'm going to go if the grid view, which again, eventually will be controlled dynamically, is equal to false. Then of course, what I would want is to return a list view instead. Now, if that is not the case, if it's going to be true, which eventually will be my default value, then of course I'll be displaying the grid view. So we go here with list view, and again, we pass in the products. So there's going to be a product prop equal to the product that I'm getting from my filter context. And at the moment, notice nothing is there. And since the grid view is false, we are displaying the list view component. And of course, we just need to set up our return. So in the list view, I would want to access my product, the prop that I'm passing in. And the case here is going to be that the product is going to look a little bit different. So that's why I'm not going to grab the product component that I used in my grid. I'm just going to set up a separate return. So we'll go here with a wrapper. And then inside of this wrapper, we'll iterate over the products. So products and then map.map. And then for every product, I would want to return a item. So I'll name the object to be product in my array, and I'll destructure some properties out of it. I'm going to say ID, image, name, price, and then the description. So think of it as we're constructing another product component. However, the style is going to be a bit different. So I'm getting this out of this product. And then for every product in my array, I would want to return an article. I'll add right away a key, and that one will be equal to my ID. And inside of this article, I'm going to go with image. That will be equal to an image. And then as far as the name, well, we're getting the name from the product, correct? So I'll save it. We should have this type of look where we have one column, and then we just need to add other info. So I have the ID right next to the ID. I'll place my div with a heading 4 of name over here. And then there's also going to be a heading 5. And then instead of this heading 5, let's just format the price right away. So add a class name here, and I'll set it equal to price. And we'll go with format price and pass in the price. Let's save it. We should see the name as well as the price. And then there's two more things. There's description, and there's also a link, of course, to the single product page. Notice, if we take a look at the complete project, we have the description, and we'll do a little bit of trickery over here because notice we're not displaying the whole thing. And then also link to the single product. So the same like we had with a product component where we had a link here as an icon. Now, of course, I'm just setting up a button, but the idea is exactly the same. So right after the heading 5, there's going to be a description, and I'll do that trickery a little bit later. So for now, we'll just say description. So this is going to be, of course, the full description. And then right after this paragraph, we're just going to go with link to. And now remember, we need to set this up dynamically, correct? So we have the link component from the React or DOM. And then this will be navigating to the product. So /product. And then whatever is that ID, whatever is the product ID. Now, in order to add a little bit of styling, we're going to go with class name and then btn. And then inside of it, let's just type details like so. Details. And then the last thing is the description, because I would want to make it shorter. And in JavaScript, the string property that we're looking for is the substring, which essentially just returns a new string. And what we're looking for is substring. So we have the string, we invoke the method substring method. And in here, we just need to say, well, how many characters I would want to get. And in my case, I'm going to start with 0. So I'm going to start with the first character and all the way to 150 characters. And then we'll just add a ... Let's save that one. And then if we navigate to our current project, notice I have my list view as well. So I'm going to navigate to the filter context and I'll set it equal to false because, or I'm sorry, true. So I'll set it equal to true. And then once we set up the sort, of course, we'll control this dynamically. So once the user presses on the list view, he or she sees the list view. Once he or she presses on a grid view, you get the point. You can see the column layout.